My fiance's brother is really about to get the cuss out of a lifetime. Planning a wedding isn't hard, but I can't understand why there's quite literally no urgency to do a task that takes maybe 20 minutes. I never met him as he lives several states away, but ooh-wee, I am ready to snap. Hello, lovely humans. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jamie Wolfer. I'm your online wedding planner, and this is not an uncommon story, unfortunately. In fact, there are probably many of you that are like, nodding along to hearing some of this phrasing going, I feel her. I feel the pain. I'm super frustrated. But before we dive into this sordid tale, welcome. If you are planning a wedding and also feeling stressed out, feel like you're losing your mind, losing your noodle a little bit, and need some perspective, need some guidance, need some other people that are sitting in this with you to go, I get it, friend, and I am here with you. If you need budget assistance, if you need floral direction, if you need someone to answer your obscure question about your great aunt and whether or not she is allowed to write in a +1, if you need someone to talk to, if you need a wedding planner to talk to, I would love to invite you to the master plan. It's my online wedding planning program where you get to work through 10 modules independently in your own time. And then once a week, we have a live wedding planner there ready to talk to you to answer any of your wedding planning questions, as well as a live monthly call with me to make sure that you are on the right track, that you are not crazy, that your stressors are being heard. We want to make sure that you feel super, super supported in this because this is a very trying time. And there's probably more than one of you that are like, yeah, I could think of a person I'd like to throw some curse words at right now because they're not being a very good listener, and I would like to vent out that frustration. I get it. Come join me in the master plan. I'm gonna leave it linked right up here for you and in the description box below if you're interested. And that is why the sponsor of today's video is one of my absolute favorites, and they're not going anywhere. It's Generation Tux, and I'm gonna explain to you why I love them so very much, but at the end of this video, you will too. Because they took a very common pain point that almost every single couple I work with runs into at one point or another and fixed it like that. Now, before you cast your vote as the a-hole or not the a-hole in the comments, let's listen to the rest of the story, shall we? The title reads, Groomsman Issue. I need some perspective on if I'm being a bridezilla right now. I also need someone to explain to me why it takes 3 months to do a single task, which is get fitted for your tux. It's in all caps. My fiance's brother is really about to get the cuss out of a lifetime. Planning a wedding isn't hard, but I can't understand why there is quite literally no urgency to do a task that takes maybe 20 minutes. I have never met him as he lives several states away, but ooh-wee, I am ready to snap. My fiance has asked him multiple times to get this done, and he won't do it. I told my fiance that if he doesn't do it by the end of January, then he is not in the wedding party anymore. I've really had it with other people. That's the only part about wedding planning is babysitting grown adults. His older brother had the nerve to ask if he could just borrow a tux from a coworker as if it mattered if the colors match. This is a human being who is married. He has had his wedding. He already knows it matters. So now we have an issue with two brothers when it comes to the attire, right? Sorry, I just need to rant because I cannot understand why this is so hard, and it's not money. We have offered to pay for their tuxes. Okay. So what's happening? My fiance asked what happens if he doesn't do it by the end of the month, and I meant it when I said he's invited to watch the wedding, but he's not invited to be in it. Okay. I'm so not joking at this point. I understand your frustration. I'm not about to be mother to a 40-year-old man. We've been engaged for over a year. This is not news. He's known the entire time he was in the party, and he just won't do it. Update, which does nothing to serve the point of this video, but I think we love a well-rounded out story now, don't we? He was kicked out of the wedding party, and not by me. Good, that would have not gone over well. Okay, I'm already inserting my opinion. We haven't got to that part yet. Apparently, my fiance has been asking him more than I knew to get his tux, and he just responds with random TikTok videos. So he called him to ask why the tux wasn't fitted. Long story short, brother said he'll get to it when he gets to it, and if he can't get the tux, then it's not a big deal. Fiance said it was to us, and out of respect, he should get it. Brother said it should be important that he just show up, and we should relax. So fiance told him he could just show up and sit in the crowd. I'm glad that the bride was removed from this. Now, in keeping with our theme with the AITA videos, I will let you know my opinion first as a professional wedding planner before we move on to the comments, okay? Great. I think that I understand the feelings that this bride had. I totally get it. I do think it's a good thing that she was not the person to kick the younger brother out. We are now developing relationships that will likely last for decades, or ideally should last for decades. So to put a line in the sand over this as a new in-law would come off very strong. Very strong. He doesn't know you yet, and this is not the hill that you want to die on, okay? I get where you're coming from, yes, and that is frustrating, and I think you are well within your rights to feel that frustration. However, I don't think that that is your only course of option, nor would it be your best course of option. So I'm super grateful to hear that the fiance stepped in and was like, no, he's out. Like, he's out for a whole list of reasons, a whole myriad of reasons, and not just because you're frustrated because of the tux thing, right? Which gets messy, but brothers can probably repair that a lot better than new fiance and or new spouse could repair it, right? This was a better tactic. If you are running into issues with the wedding party on your fiance's side, you will need to enlist your fiance to make decisions of that nature, to decide unilaterally just as yourself because of a clothing issue, which I understand is a big clothing issue. I get, trust me, like I said, this happens all the time. This is not a unique story, which is very unfortunate, but it's not a unique story. But to ostracize a family member because they won't get their clothing in time does start to sound a little silly, right? I get it. You are absolutely allowed to talk to your fiance and say, hey, this is important. I will die on this hill with you. You and I will have this conversation, right? I am not asking you to disown your brother. I am asking that you step in and help facilitate this conversation because I don't want to start off on this foot with your brother. I don't even know the person, okay? Like I don't want my first real conversation with him to be all swear words, okay? So if you can step in and help me, you know him better than I do, you handle this conversation, great. Please know this is of great importance to me. Which obviously we saw. Your fiance then took that conversation and kept having it with his brother. His brother was very lackadaisical about it, if you will, and decided not to do it. He said it wasn't important. Not important to him. Fiance said it's important to us. Just show up and watch. Okay, cool. We're done. That's kind of where my personal feelings are on it. But there is one specific pain point here, and that we'll get to in just a minute. But let's read some of the comments first, and then you're going to see exactly where I'm coming from and where every bride and groom on this thread are also coming from. I feel this deeply. My girls' dresses were all delivered this weekend. The groomsmen haven't gotten fitted for their suits yet. For my fiance's younger brothers, I may actually reach out to his family and see if they can get this going. I'm cackling because this was our situation. I'm getting married in less than 2 weeks and my girls have had their dresses since August, September. The guys, some of them got them tailored this month. It has been nothing but stress dealing with them. Huh? Yeah, you don't need the added stress of micromanaging adults. You don't. You got a lot going on. Give deadlines. If people don't hit deadlines, there's consequences. You're communicating your boundary effectively and clearly. I agree. There is some merit to that. OMG, G. I came here to say the same. Oof, boys. How do I say this? You must speak to his handler. A man who cannot accomplish a single thing is always relying on someone else. Speak to whoever that is. Mother, wife, girlfriend, sister, cousin, Sally, whoever. I know it's unnerving, but so many men are still this way and I can't even believe it. I don't know if I'm going to make generalities about men in general, but I do know that this is a common theme is like the fitting. Why is the fitting so difficult? The ordering. To be honest, I do think that kicking your fiance's brother out of the wedding party over this is a bit extreme. I agree with this to an extent. I think it shouldn't be you to do it. Let's just say that. I understand that having the wedding party match is important to you, but you also said he's married, so he should understand this. But it's possible they were more lax about this particular thing at his wedding. He may genuinely not have realized this mattered so much to you until it was explicitly communicated to him. Sure, there could be some assumptions happening here. That's a very, very fair thing to add. Edit. Upon reread, I realized you meant the other brother was already married, so my bad. Okay, so there's two brothers. But my overall point still stands. Okay. To be clear, I don't think your fiance's brother is in the right either. You've clearly communicated this is important to you, so I can understand your frustration with him for not taking it seriously. But with all that being said, kicking someone out of the wedding party still feels like an extreme reaction. I don't know if I agree with that specifically. As a part of the wedding party, if you are agreeing to the wedding party attire, then you can stand up there, right? So and this gets cultural, okay, which I found fascinating because my friends over across the pond will pay for their wedding party members' attire. Here in the United States, we don't do that. That's not something that's super common unless the couple is a little bit more affluent. That's not something that I see with great frequency. In fact, most of the weddings I work, the wedding party pays for their own attire. So we always want to be mindful of that, right? Mindful of financial situations, etc. So there is that element of like, hey, there is like some requirements that come along with being a part of the wedding party. One of them is adhering to the outfits I would like to wear. But this is also a complete non-issue here because the couple offered to pay for it. So my guess is based on how she's spelled some of her words and the general phrasing that this does come across as not UK, but it could be somewhere else. I'm making wild assumptions here because there's not U's in certain words that we don't have U's in. They're paying for them. So it does remove a lot of that sting. It just sounds like, again, this younger brother is just doesn't care. If my fiance tried to kick my sister out of our wedding because of something like this, I would not react well. I hear that. I just feel like it's likely to cause a lot of conflict over something that, in the grand scheme of things, isn't going to cause any material harm. Of course, it's your wedding. You can do what you want, but you also ask for perspective, so there's mine. That's a fair statement to make. Also, specifically with regards to the groomman matching for photos, I mean, he's your fiance's brother. Isn't he going to end up in a lot of photos regardless of him being in the party or not? Yeah, but you're not trying to match the entire family. And this is a fair response. I don't see this as her kicking him out. It's him dealing with the consequences of his own actions. That's fair. Being a groomsman is supposed to be an honor that he's excited to do. A couple is allowed to set their own rules for what that entails, especially if they're paying for it. You can choose to say no, that you're not interested as a wedding party member, right? You're allowed to say that. But this situation just getting silly. It feels like a middle schooler throwing a cold shoulder. Ask me how I know. I have 2 middle schoolers. I love them so much. Actually, I don't think they've ever done anything like this, but it would be on brand for this age demographic. If they set a deadline and he doesn't meet it, well, that's 100% on him. I think he just doesn't realize how soon this has to be done. He's probably thinking the wedding's in April. What's the rush? Why are you guys so crazy about this? Blah, 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 blah. I bet if he's given a deadline, he'll do it the very next day. I think that there are hundreds of comments on this thread that disagree with you, my friend, but that's okay. That's okay. Dudes just don't care about these things until there's actual consequences. Yeah, he was given a deadline. He just ignored it. I also think that there is another part of the conversation that needs to be added to this, right? Mental fatigue. I am not the returner in my family. My husband returns the things. I don't return the things, okay? And those who don't return things will get it. And those who do return things will also get it because they're probably married to or in a relationship with or know someone who does not return the things. I'm not a returner of the things. So sometimes the idea of going out to run an errand sounds more overwhelming than the actual errand is. Does that make sense? Like, I'm like, I don't want to do that. That requires real pants. And I got to put my kids in the car and I got to get that figured out. I'm the type that if I have an appointment at 4 p.m. that day, I am like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do with all of this time? Because I've got an appointment later, so I can't do anything. It's almost like working the night shift, like when I used to work at Starbucks and I would close, be like, well, there goes my whole day. I can't even do laundry because I have to work later. It's just a weird psyche thing. So there could be an element of that here with this groomsman going, I can't fathom driving and going and getting the measurements and like standing there and trying to, it just sounds like a very big, very overwhelming task that I don't want any part of. And here's where my beautiful, gorgeous Generation Tux solves this problem. And this is why I will continue to talk about them for years and years to come. When you use Generation Tux, there is no driving anywhere. There is no inputting any sort of measurements ever. And I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous. We actually have a video coming out that I'll walk you through the process of what it looks like to order a suit from them. It is so simple. It's so easy. And there are no measurements required, right? You need to know your height, you need to know your weight and your average build. And you answer a couple other questions on their avatar and they send you a suit that fits like a dream. And if for any reason whatsoever it doesn't fit, they send it to you 2 weeks beforehand so you have plenty of time to send it back for minor adjustments. They even have in-house tailors to do this. The hardest part of getting groomsmen to go get their suits is the act of going, is the act of like leaving the home, whether it's because they are not returners, right? And the thought of leaving their home overwhelms them, or they're like, you're crazy, you're making this extra, I don't need to go this early. The issue is the leaving of the house thing. And with Generation Tux, you never have to do that. Ever. There are no measurements input at any point in time, unless you count your height and your weight. But those are numbers you're probably already going to know. You won't even need to go to a tailor for something like that. And especially if you are paying for all of these suits, which is super kind of you, by the way, you can actually get a free suit yourself. If you have 5 wedding party members rent a suit through Generation Tux, you get your rental for free. If you have 7 of them rent their suit through Generation Tux, you get to keep your wedding suit for free. So this actually kind of ends up working out super, super nicely if you're making all the payments and covering everyone's suits, which again, culturally is not always what we see here in the States, but if that is the case, you just bought yourself a free suit and you don't have to be hounding grown men to leave their house to go get their measurements taken anywhere. This is one of the top reasons I'm obsessed with Generation Tux, because that is the biggest pain point, because they looked at their customers and said, what are you dealing with? What are the issues? And all of their customers are like, getting the groomsmen fitted. We can't get them out the door. Whether it's emotional fatigue or feeling like another item on their task list or them assuming, no, we'll do it later. It's not a big deal. It takes all of that work out of it. You no longer have to worry about hounding your groomsmen to get out of the house to get measured because it is no longer a need. In fact, I've actually done this on my husband's behalf and gone through the avatar on my own on his behalf. So worst case scenario, I mean, ideally, you don't want to necessarily just order the suit. I'm not saying you should order the suit for them, right? I'm not saying that. But if you know their height and their weight and their general build, my guess is you could find something that's pretty darn close. And like someone said earlier, if you have to speak with our handler, then that's something you could do too. One last comment before we leave. Not to add to the panic, but you should know. One of my groomsmen procrastinated and they ran out of his size. So we had to start all over with a different company, even though the other guys had their tuxes. This is because otherwise it wouldn't match. So you're totally being reasonable. If you missed it, I did a whole tour of Generation Tux's warehouse. And let me tell you, they have suits for days. So you shouldn't have the issue of having to turn to anybody else because they've got thousands of options. Like I walked through all of this warehouse. It's huge. They told me to wear comfortable walking shoes because of how large it was. We love them for that. So if this is something that you're running into, if this is an experience that you're having with groomsmen, first of all, I'm so sorry. You are not alone. Second of all, this is so common that an entire suit rental company built their company around this issue and found a way to resolve it with literally thousands of near 5-star reviews out there on the internet. So if you'd like to check them out and you missed the convenient little call to action earlier, check it out in the description box down below to get your free suit rental and or your free suit, depending on how many rentals you have, courtesy of my friends over at Generation Tux. So that's all we have for this week's video, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm here for you. I love you. I'm so sorry if this resonates with you. My friends at Generation Tux and I, we got you, okay? So from getting you the right suits in the right time frame with the laziest of persons in your wedding party to dealing with the everyday stressors of planning an actual wedding, I'm here for you over in the master plan, which again, if you missed earlier, you can find in the description box down below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more tips and tricks for the modern day bride. And until next week, bye guys.